Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Album Homework Assignment. Thanks for spending your Sunday morning with us. Well, in some parts of the world, it might be afternoon or evening, but whatever time of day it is, thanks for watching. We've got in the co-captain's chairs today, Mr. George Lamie and Mr. Sean Tonar. What's happening, gentlemen?
Well,
Hey, Pete.
I am
Good to
looking.
see you.
Same here. Same here. I look forward to always sitting in on these and hearing what folks have given each other and what they've been spending time with for the last couple of weeks. So let's see. Let's see who goes first. I pointed to myself. That's not going to work. All right, George. What were you given by Sean to listen to and talk about here?
Sean gave me, I don't know how would you say it's the self-titled Utopia or Todd Rundgren's Utopia?
The first one, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it seems like, it sounds like a band to me. So I assume they just tacked his name on there for sales purposes, but it definitely sounds like a real band to me. 1974, the first of 10 studio albums from what I'm seeing, and looks like an equal amount of live albums too. First question I have right now: how in the vinyl era did they fit 59 minutes? It's a 59-minute album in 74.
Well,
it wasn't a double, right? I don't believe it was.
you know,
Yeah.
Todd is notorious for doing that, and the sound of his vinyl records suffered because of it.
Okay.
Because there's so much crammed on there, the grooves aren't very deep, so the bass isn't as deep. It's all kind of a little tinny sounding.
That was supposed to be not possible, I thought, at the time.
You can force it, I guess,
Yeah,
at a
because like
cost.
a Wizard of True Star was like that, right? Wasn't that like 52 minutes or something like that? I mean,
Yeah, and that's another one. And what's the
the Todd album, I think, too.
Initiation too?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another one where it's
exactly.
all crammed on there. I
Yeah.
think Todd was a double, so he might not have had to cram as much on
Is
that.
that a
But
double? Yeah, I think you're right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But
but
yeah, it's funny because I always thought a Wizard of True Star was a double LP. I never had it on LP. I just only had the CD. But then, like recently, I was looking into that. I'm like, oh, that was a single. It's like, wow, that's a long single. So,
a lot of stuff on there. Yeah,
George, I
looks
got to
like
say, George, I am amazed you never heard the first Utopia album before.
No, it's just like a guy. I just knew the radio singles of the solo stuff, and I just never have dug in.
Wow. Oof. Very cool.
different ball of wax, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of surprising. Like American prog in the 70s, it's kind of a small strike zone there, but here it is. Interesting too. It kicks off with a live track on a studio album. I don't know if that was something a lot of people did, but I don't recall having a lot of records like that. But it jumps off with a live track, Utopia theme. There's an introduction of a couple of up-tempo riffs that kind of cycle through, and then you got a pair of keyboard solos. There are 3 keyboard players on this album. I can't say I could pick them apart, but it's kind of an interesting concept. If you're more familiar with them, maybe you can, that'd be something you would get into. Probably go to like 7 minutes in before the vocals finally introduced. It's a good melody, which is then echoed by the guitar, and it leads into a guitar solo from Todd. And then you got a new riff that comes in for a couple of minutes before they come back to the progressions from earlier in the song and close it out. Despite the track length, it doesn't feel overlong to me at 14 and a half. It's just a track that goes by, and I like every bit of it.
Yeah, is that the Utopia theme? I think it is.
Utopia
Yeah,
theme.
Classic song.
yeah.
Track 2, they start the studio part, Freak Parade. It's probably my favorite tune. So I got a real nifty little lead line. It sounds like it's in 6. That's the intro. Then they go into a mellow melodic part where Todd's doing some slides. It's pretty cool. And the bassist kind of solos out and kicks off another part that runs through before they reprise the opening, and a little funky variation of the opening. That's the basis of the vocal section, which is the vocals are a little bit unusual. Doesn't sound like the vocals on the rest of the album. I don't know if it's still him, but it sounds a little, I don't know, the style of it's interesting. You got an electric piano part into like a feedback and effects passage, and then they go into a keyboard solo, and they outro over the earlier bass part. They bring the bass part back and they outro over that. That's like 10 and change, and that's another really good song that just goes by. Doesn't feel like 10 minutes at all. Track 3 is Freedom Fighters. I'd say this is the most accessible piece on the album. It's only 4 minutes. It's an almost Beatlesque vocal melody on the verse. Couple minor instrumental interludes break up the repetitions of the vocal progressions, but the song really rides on the vocal progressions. If you like the melody, you're gonna like this song, and I do. Then track 4, the final track, is The Icon, half-hour epic. Kicks off with a couple of solos, a Moog solo, guitar solo, before the vocals come in. You got your standard verse, chorus, pattern. And then you go into a melodic section that leads into, I don't know, kind of a hippie vocal part. They break out into a clav and Moog kind of thing that goes into some soloing before they bring back the vocal progressions again. There's another instrumental section, including a little hoedown flavored bit. That's pretty cool. Then they cycle through some of the previous stuff. As you would imagine with a half-hour track, you got to do something to make it go. But there are no lame sections in this. It may feel a little bit padded down the last 10 minutes, but I mean, for a half-hour track, you usually expect there's some ambient part that's like 4 or 5 minutes and everyone's falling asleep. Not on this one.
Close to the edge.
Yeah. Hemispheres. I mean, there's always that part like just bends and slide. No, not this one. Everything's pretty cool. I don't think it's as good as the first 3 tracks. If I had to differentiate, it's just maybe I would put it as slightly less captivating as the earlier tunes, but not so much. I mean, it's pretty much a good album from top to bottom. I don't know, is it standalone, or is some of the other albums, would you say, are in the same vein?
Well, this lineup only did one other album, almost
Okay.
the same lineup. They actually added yet another keyboard player on the next one. They didn't have enough. I think one of the guys left because it was like Moogie Klingman, who does most of the heavy lifting, most of the most impressive soloing is him. And there's Ralph Schuckett, who also does a lot of kind of almost rhythm kind of work. And then there's this, what's his name, Imfrog Labatt or something like that, that kind of was like, it kind of, how Brian Eno made all these weird synthy sounds in early Roxy music. He's more of an ambient textural guy. Well, that's what this guy did. So there's like, it sounds like excessive, but they each had their roles.
A couple of those names don't sound real.
I think they swapped out M. Frog Labatt for Roger Powell, who went on to play keys on most of the Utopia albums that followed.
And he was a really good soloist, and he was kind of like the Jan Hammer in this band.
He was, and he was a synth pioneer when it came to sounds and things of that nature as well. So I'm sure they really felt like they landed a good one when they got him in the fold.
There's a lot of different keyboard sounds on this. I mean, pretty much the whole gamut.
It's a feast of keyboard sounds. It's just
Yeah.
great. It was done at a time before a bunch of crappy ones were invented. So we don't have to suffer through any cheese, so it's nice. But yeah, later on, they kind of swapped up the lineup, on the next album, they did one called Another Live, which is this lineup again. And half of it is like new studio stuff. Yeah. In particular, there's a tune called The Seven Rays that hangs really nicely with the stuff from the first record.
Yeah.
And then side 2 is like a cover, kind of covers and live stuff. They do a cover of Something's Coming from, West Side Story. Da 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 da. That. Yeah, yes,
cool,
in the early days as well. Yeah, and they do "Do Ya" from The Move, which later was redone by Jeff Lynne with ELO. It became kind of a big hit for them. Dan, 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 that tune.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know. I don't know why they chose these particular covers, but they seem like part of the Utopia repertoire at this point to me. And then the next album, they pared down to a 4-piece with Roger Powell. They got a new bass player instead of John Siegler, who's awesome. So he's one of the highlights of this first 2 Utopia records. They got Chasm Sultan, who's been with Todd ever since, and is equally great, but he's also an awesome vocalist as well. So he's got a double threat. And they did an album called Raw, and that's probably the last proggy Utopia album there is. Like there's a big epic on it called Singering and the Glass Guitar, which during the show, like Todd would scale a pyramid on stage and he would be like the crown at the top of it. Like, and then he'd play a killer guitar solo and then he'd bungee cord off the pyramid at the end of the solo. Height of excess.
Raw is pretty incredible, actually.
Yeah, Raw's a good record too. And it's kind of a blend of the proggy cool stuff. There's tunes like Communion of the Sun and what's that other song? Sunburst Finish?
Sunburst Finish, yeah.
Or is that Bebop Deluxe? I'm getting confused.
They have a song called Sunburst Finished, right?
As well, or okay. Tobacco Sunburst or something like that. So that's cool. Then after that, they just like totally shifted gears and did this kind of power pop that Todd's been known for a decade anyway. And a lot of that's really good because it's super sophisticated, stuff. So, it's almost like the kind of melodic parts of this first record kind of set me up for more poppy stuff that followed later. It wasn't much of a stretch when I heard those records.
All the vocal melodies are good. I mean,
yeah, he's a kind of a master at arranging vocal harmonies and stuff. You hear stuff that other people don't. Definitely. So, how did it hang for you when it came to comparing it to other fusion of that time period, George?
it doesn't sound like anything else to me. Usually, you hear something from, and you can say, "Well, this sounds like that," but I don't really compare it to anything else. I was impressed with that, if for nothing else. I mean, good stuff.
Yeah, he was apparently, I think, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he went on record saying numerous times that he was really into what bands like Yes and Genesis and Gentle Giant and such were doing, ELP at the time, and he kind of wanted it. He wanted to experiment with it a little bit, and he also started taking psychedelics around the same time as well. So I'm sure that didn't hurt matters, but yeah, because that's not where he started off. If you listen to like his first couple solo albums and stuff he did with Nas, I mean, nothing like that album at all.
No, it's more like what happened later. It's almost like he kind of went back to the power pop stuff that he'd always been doing.
Yeah.
He had this kind of psychedelic, proggy left turn from, Wizard of True Star up through like Initiation. And these Utopia albums happened in that timeline as well.
Yeah.
So, quite a bit of proggy kind of fusiony stuff in his catalog, it's uniquely his, it's like, I agree. I don't really hear him emulating anybody in particular. I get a whiff of Zappa, like Freak Parade and,
Freak Parade's got some Zappa, they got some Gentle Giant for me, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely hear a little of that, kind of just the whimsical quality of it. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it, I was oblivious of Todd for many years. I mean, only in the last 15 years did I get hip to him. And it's because a musician friend of mine gave me a copy of this very album. And I just loved it. And it made me want to go check out the rest of his catalog. And, I like it all to varying degrees, Todd's pretty darn consistent. And every time he does a record, he does something different. So
yeah,
it's kind of, you expect him to kind of at this point, he's played every genre, but you kind of expect it, It's kind of like, yes, you expect the lineup to change every year. Well, with Todd, he changes his mind musically every year.
He does.
Perpetual change musically.
Yep. Yeah, that Utopia album is one of the great debuts of the 70s, I think, that doesn't get enough credit. So
yeah, it gets overlooked a whole lot. I remember hearing it back in the early 90s. A friend of mine played me the Icon, and I remember thinking, that's long. I can't say it left much of an impression on me, but when I went back to it, like I said, 15 years ago, I was just like, it totally clicked. And I was just, so I'm glad you got to check it out. George and I have a lot of the same record collection. So we probably talked for about 30 minutes before it's like, oh, here you go. You hadn't heard that. Okay, there's one.
So the question remains, George, would you consider buying this one? Would you maybe listen to it online occasionally, or would you forget all about it?
I would buy it. I took a quick look at Discogs and Amazon. It appears to be pricey for whatever reason. There's only two on Discogs and they were up there, and Amazon, it was way up there. But I'll get it when I see it. I mean, probably have better luck at one of the used shops here.
Yeah,
You might want to spring for the CD version because I think it might have actually got put on there without all that, like vinyl issues because they cram so much on it. The CD actually probably sounds better than the record.
I would
I,
expect, yeah.
I haven't done a comparison. I have them both.
I haven't
They
looked, but
always
I
sound better
wonder,
to
did
me.
they ever release a, they have those little box sets now that have like a whole bunch of albums from each band or artist, and they're in like the little mini LP replica sleeves. I wonder if they ever did like a little collection of some of those early Utopia albums or not. I don't know. I haven't looked, but
I know there's a Todd one. You know that series where they come in the paper sleeves and there's like
yeah,
five of them for like
Yeah.
$25. It's a killer deal. I know they have a Todd one that has like big chunk of his solo records, but I don't know. I have to look that up, because
What
that'd be
else?
a great way. That's kind of how I got into a lot of his other records. Is I bought that box and it had Healing and Tortured Artist and Mink Hollow and that kind of run through those particular years.
yeah,
Um,
cool.
but yeah, Todd's pretty consistent and live. I don't know if you ever seen him live, but man, it's its own thing, man. He's got more energy than guys half his age, even now at 74 or whatever he is.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Doesn't he use Lyle Workman now?
No, that was like back in the 90s.
Okay.
Like back in the 90s, he did an album called Almost Human. And instead of doing one of these one man band kind of things that he was known to do, like his previous record was called Acapella, and it was all, there were no instruments on it. It was all him sampling his voice and tweaking it and creating these compositions right down to the drums. So for the next record, he put together a really pro band and cut it live in the studio. And Lyle Workman was part of that. And they took that on tour. There's a fantastic live DVD from Japan of that lineup. Maybe the best band he ever had, and that's, not throwing shade on Chasm and all those guys he plays with. They're awesome. But that was like a big Todd big band, And, he had the guys from, that he produced a pop group called Bourgeois Tag, and then kind of co-opted them to be his band, and then added other people like Vince Welnick from the Tubes and some other people I can't remember the names of, but yeah, that's what happened there. So Lyle played with him for a couple of years there.
Cool.
And if
Sounds
y'all
good.
haven't checked out Lyle's CD that came out last year called Uncommon Measures, it's awesome. Check
Good
it out.
stuff. Yeah, good stuff. All right, so we got as soon as George can track down a copy, we got a purchase on this one. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm glad you like that. That's a really good album. Really good album. I got to think that of discovering that first Utopia album for the first time here in 2022. That's it's pretty cool. Very cool. All right, Sean, what were you given by George?
Well, I was given something that's not a far cry from some of the stuff I've heard Lyle Workman do. It's an instrumental guitarist. He's a fusion guitarist, and his name is Ali Neander, Alineander. And he did an album. I'm not sure what year this was. I'm probably thinking in the last 20 years. It's called This One Goes to 11. And it features him on the cover with an interesting Strat that's made out of like copper plumbing. It looks like he bought it at Lowe's or something, or put it together. And even has little gauges on it and like a hot water faucet kind of thing like you'd find behind your washing machine. That kind of stuff. So just the cover alone kind of makes you go, okay, this guy's got quite an imagination. And he also, the bassist on this album is Helmut Hattler, who is from a group called Kron.
Come on,
He's
yeah,
kind of a bass god in those
he's amazing. Yeah,
circles. Yeah, he really is something else. So, in the bass department, totally cooking as well. And And then he has some different guest stars, not of all which I know, but I recognize Paul McCandless, who plays winds with a group called Oregon, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is really cool. This is right up my alley. I think you picked a good one here. I can't really go track by track. I didn't really have a chance to analyze it like that because I've been getting ready for a show that happened last night, so I'm distracted. But I have listened to it a bunch, and I have a number of different tracks that I really like. And I think my very favorite one, hold on a second here, I'm checking my list of names, is called Settlement 17. And this song is just, it sounds like the lightning fast kind of unison lines that you hear in Shakti era John McLaughlin stuff meets a bit of Mahavishnu. And it's funny because once I listened to this record, the next track that came up, well, before I was even done, we reached a cover that they do of the Dance of Maya from the first Mahavishnu album. And then I was like, okay, I'm not just imagining this. This guy obviously really is inspired by John McLaughlin. And great, bring it on. So I think Paul McCandless is playing winds on that particular track. It's really kind of interesting to hear winds on a tune like that. And it's kind of a heavier kind of version. Like he really turns up the gain and really adds some crunch in a few spots that almost gives it a metallic kind of vibe, which is, it isn't just a straight up cover, although it's pretty faithful. It's a little crunchier than the original. And I ran across another cover he did of Celestial Terrestrial Commuters off of Birds of Fire that was equally cool. So, and there's some others on here. This is just, he's got just really a killing strat tone going on. And his compositions remind me, yeah, McLaughlin, and I kind of some Steve Morse, Dixie Dregs kind of stuff too. It's composed that well. And again, that's kind of McLaughlin trickle down when you think about it, because that's kind of what Steve Morse's half of his thing is, being inspired by John McLaughlin and his style of writing and composing. So, yeah, this guy's hanging tough with the likes of both of those guys. And if you like this sort of 70s fusion meets kind of a more modern angle, you kind of little Steve Vai, a little Satriani, but harmonically more uptown and sophisticated, then I would highly suggest this record. I really liked it. George, how'd you find out about this guy? Am I right? He's from Germany as well.
He's from Germany, yeah. Got recommended from a friend. He recommended me the first album. This is the second one, but yeah, I checked it out and I just thought the songwriting was next level. I mean, not just a wanker.
No,
Definitely.
definitely not. I mean, it's obvious that he's improvising a lot of these solos, but
Yeah.
they're really, it really makes sense, and it's not just wanky. No, not at all. So yeah,
What was his name again? And what was the name of the album?
his name is Ali, Ali, Neander. Now, if I was named that, I'd have an album called Thal. Get it? Neander.
Oh.
I'd be dressed like a caveman on the cover. There he is.
Oh, there we go. All right.
His copper pipe guitar there.
Yeah, that's
Very
a
cool. And where'd
wild
you
looking
get this
guitar.
out?
Holy cow.
Was this an import or something?
It's an import, but I got it off Amazon. It's on a German label. 2014, by the way.
Okay, I was wondering. It sounded fairly modern. Yeah.
That was a crazy looking guitar. Yeah, Amazon does not have any copies currently, but maybe on Discogs for folks.
Yeah.
Look, yeah, Ali Neander featuring Helmut Hattler, Paul McCandless, Martin Casper, Drew Krause, Moritz Mueller, and Clive Stevens. And this one goes to 11. Pretty cool.
I dig it.
Yeah, I want to go check that out. That sounds pretty damn good.
Cool.
So, Sean, where are you at with this one? Possible purchase, listen online, or?
I already listened online. Yeah, I'd love to buy it. I think it's really good. I just want to stick it in the car and crank it up. So
There you
it's
go.
that kind of record.
Cool. Cool. Well, we got two positive responses here today. Two possible purchases. Although it looks like two albums are going to be take a little effort to go track down because both seem to be fairly rare these days, I guess, which is kind of crazy. But it's what happens in this modern CD age, right? It's like things go out of print pretty quickly, and they don't reprint stuff as often as we'd like, I think, unfortunately. So cool. Well, this was fun. So any last words, gentlemen?
It's always a pleasure, Pete. You know, I always look forward to these. And I heard a little thunder back there a minute ago. Are you still getting hammered?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like we get these little thunderclaps and then like this just deluge of rain for like 30 seconds and then it stops and then it comes back. It's every now and then you probably see me looking up like, oh shit, what's going on out there? So yeah, it's
Yeah,
storming here in the Hudson Valley tonight. It's,
you're looking a little worried there. Yeah. Well,
well,
I've got somebody out here cutting a tree up with a chainsaw. So if you
uh,
get a little interference, folks, you'll know we had something happening in the background there.
there you go. There you go. Cool. Well, yeah, this is always fun. I happen to like this format quite a bit. In fact, I even reached out to Mr. Simon Bray today and said, "Would you like to go up against me in a future album homework assignment in a couple of weeks?" He said yes. So myself and Simon Bray with Stephen Reed officiating will be in a couple of weeks. But we've got next week we've got Sydney Taylor and Nick Franco from the Hudson Valley Squares going head to head. So stay tuned for that a week from today. But for here, I want to thank both Sean and George for going and doing their homework assignment and loving the music. That's always a good thing. I like when we get some positives going on. So, Sean, you want to plug anything going on in your neck of the woods over on Soul Night Live? I know you've been kind of going slow over there for a
I've
while.
been a little sporadic with my shows lately, but I've got some other stuff kind of in the pipeline. In the meantime, I had a whirlwind chat with Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull a couple of weeks ago, talking about their new album, The Zealot Gene, and laying a few surprises on us that I didn't know. I think y'all will be kind of surprised as well. Um, so check it out. Yeah, it's /soul SOAL Night Live over at YouTube, and there's over 100 different episodes. It's all about chats with progressive rock and fusion musicians for the most part, many of which I'm sure you've heard of and love like I do. So
Very
go over
good.
and check it out. It'd be great.
Very cool. And
Give me a sub if you have a chance when you get over there.
yeah, go give Sean some love and give him a sub over there at Soul Night Live. And look for Sean this coming Wednesday. We've got the return of the Guitarist Corner, our once a month show coming up. Sean and the rest of the panel and myself will be talking about our favorite guitar riffs of the 80s. So that's coming up. And look for George, of course, in the Prague seat this coming Tuesday night. So lots happening here on the channel. So don't miss any of it. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. Check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. But of course, we're here all together all the damn time on YouTube. For Sean, Tonar, and George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the Sunday, everybody, and we'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.